He became the youngest GM in the world at the age of 12 years and 4 months. On the left of your screen is Grandmaster Abhimanyu Mishra. He's taking on the extremely strong Praggnanandhaa at the Biel Blitz 2024. This promises to be an exciting encounter there. Mishra has the white pieces. He's beaten Pragg in classical format here, even in chess 960. So he's clearly had an upper hand against Pragg in BL. Let's see what happens here. E4 by Abhimanyu, E5, knight comes out, knight C6, and we have the Italian on the board. C3, knight F6, and D3 played. White quickly castles, Pragg pushes his pawn to D6. This is an opening that is known for both these players quite well. Thousands of games have been played in the Italian. Rook E1 played by Abhimanyu. Black castles. Pragg adjusts all the pieces. H3 played. H6. And this is a very slow Italian knight e2. Pragg reroutes his knight from c6 to g6, a very common maneuver in this line. Abhimanyu takes his time a bit. When the knight moves away from c6, d4 becomes an idea, but he first goes bishop b3, knight goes to g6, and now pushes his pawn to d4. Pragg may not want to take this pawn and give white a very strong center. They'll try to wait rook e8, putting some pressure on the e4 pawn with the knight and the rook. Bishop goes back to c2, defending the pawn on e4, so as to prepare knight f1 to g3, and b5 played by Pragg. You know, generally black already has the pawn on b5 and white goes a4, but here the order is inversed. Knight f1, bishop b7. Now attacking e4 once again, so you need to protect it. Knight g3 seems logical. We have a very interesting position, which is like a slow maneuvering game. I like how black's bishops are placed on b7 and a7, but also very, very strong is white's center on with the pawns on e4 and d4. Pragg waits with bishop b6. The interesting thing is that this position has been reached 36 times already. Pragg himself has played against Kacharawa. That is very interesting. So Pragg is actually playing out of memory, and I guess Abhimanyu is thinking over the board here. There are few possibilities here. One move that does catch the attention is the move h4 with the idea of h5. That could be an idea. The other one is to take and maybe take on a8. But Abhimanyu plays bishop e3. And I'm trying to understand this move, because if Pragg were to take, suddenly there is 3 attackers, he takes it. And if you take back with the pawn, which was ideally what you wanted to do, then after bishop e4, I think black is doing pretty well here. So I'm not sure if Abhimanyu is going to take back with the pawn. It's important, by the way, to take with the bishop, because if you take with the knight here, then after take, there's this bishop g5 tactic. He goes, by the way, to take with the bishop. Pragg plays c5. Kacharawa had taken on f6, but Abhimanyu goes back. And now if bishop e4 this time, then after knight takes, there is bishop h6 here, which is pretty strong. And then you take on e4. So Pragg doesn't indulge in taking the pawn on e4. He just pushes his pawn to d5. He pushes the pawn forward, and now you can see Abhimanyu thinking very deeply. He has 1 minute 20 seconds only. Pragg has 2 minutes 15 seconds. AB taken, and Pragg is just dabbling with the idea of taking on e4, but takes back, takes on a8. And I think taking back with the queen makes a lot of sense, because then you have the a file, also pressure on the e4 point. These positions are generally very even because the pawn structure is symmetrical, but also at the same time they're strategically very rich. If one side is able to even get a very small edge, it's very difficult to then play around it. Queen a8 played. And for Abhimanyu, it would have been nice to push the pawn forward, but it's not possible because you can just take it. So maybe taking on d5 seems like the only option. Yes, he takes. Knight takes. Now the bishop is hanging, and logically you want to keep the bishop pair. So bishop d2 seems like a decent move here. But let's see what Abhimanyu comes up with. He has to speed up a bit. He has 50 seconds. He goes knight to f5. Now, with this move, he is pressurizing g7, h6, also defending the bishop on e3. I guess Pragg may want to take on e3 here. So he's calculating a few things. He takes on e3, rook e3. And now the rooks are also getting traded. So most of the times the rooks will be taken here, but also you could play rook d8, keeping the rooks on the board if Praggnanandhaa wants to continue pushing. But in this entire process of simplification, if you see, Pragg has burnt a lot of time, and now both the players are down under a minute. Abhimanyu has 53 seconds. Pragg also has 53 seconds on the clock. I'm not really sure what exactly he's calculating. Perhaps he wants to look at rook d8 as an idea. Is c4 even possible, trying to attack here? So let's say c4, rook e8, oops, rook e8 here, queen e8 could be possible. Anyway, Pragg says, let me take. He takes on e3, knight e3 on the board. And once again, Pragg is thinking whether he should take on f3 or not. He has just 24 seconds left. He takes on f3. Now for Abhimanyu to take back with the pawn is a little risky, with queens on board and his king being slightly exposed. So he trades queens. Pragg goes knight f4. And now Pragg says that I'm attacking your h3 pawn, which I find as a small weakness in the position. So that's the little thing that Pragg wants to fight for here. And with 27 seconds, Abhimanyu having 30, this is going to land up in time trouble. Bishop f5 played by Abhimanyu here, defending the pawn with his bishop, and also planning to attack the pawn on b5 here with bishop d7. You can see Pragg getting a bit impatient there. He's not able to find that some kind of a move that helps him make progress. He goes g6, bishop d7, and pushes his pawn to b4. It's quite amazing how players like Praggnanandhaa are able to keep their cool with just 10 seconds on the clock. King g7, knight comes, beautiful move by Abhimanyu. He says, let's exchange the knights, and then it's opposite colored bishops, and most likely it'll end in a draw. King e2, knight gives a check here. King e3, knight goes to b3, and pawn pushes forward. He moves his knight to d4, and the bishop comes back. A pawn push to f5, bishop goes back. Now you can see that the structure has kind of been fixed, and both the players are just moving around, the two knights and the two bishops standing off against each other. Pragg goes back to g7, bishop comes to e8, and I like this move. When the bishop is 2 squares away from the knight, it often takes away many of the squares. So once the bishop is on d8, Pragg says, okay, now I'm not afraid of your knight, and now I'm going to play pretty quickly. So that's how Pragg thinks. Hg, bishop comes back, king e5. You can see black making some inroads here, but really there's no square to get into as the knight is controlling this. Bishop a5. He goes bishop to h5, attacking the pawn on f2, pushes forward. Pragg comes back to a5, king e3 played, and he plays it again. Now king d3, just keep repeating, and it is a draw. But Abhimanyu blunders. Oh my god. He thinks it's good to simplify and try maybe even for a win with the outside passer, but bishop d2, he's missed this move. And now king takes f4, and all of a sudden, look at black's position. It is completely dominant. The knight is going to come outplay the bishop totally. And king e3, you can see there, all of a sudden, white is completely lost. The f pawn is running down the board. The knight stops the h pawn from even moving one step ahead. Knight g2, bishop comes back, and now king f2. Just if you take, I take with the pawn. He checks, wins the bishop here, and Pragg knows he's won this. He's ground it out here, just like how Magnus does it so many times. And a smile on the face of Pragg, but I really like Abhimanyu's fighting spirit there. He's also discussing the game there. He knows it was a draw. Both of them knew it was a draw, but in the end, it was Pragg who managed to outwit his opponent. A very interesting game of Blitz.